It may not be at the very top of every traveler's destination list, but Tallinn, Estonia is one of those hidden gems that, once discovered, people immediately fall in love with. If you have watched my most recent videos, you'll have an idea of why I like Tallinn so much. Step foot inside the medieval old town and you'll feel like you're in a real-life Disneyland with medieval streets, walls, and towers. And yes, with occasional actors in period costume. Hey, this is Daniel from Where's My Map? And today I wrapped up my 4-day visit to Tallinn by joining an organized bus tour that will cover parts of 4 countries in Northern Europe for the next 7 days. Our group tour of Tallinn started after breakfast this morning from our hotel, the Radisson Blu Olympia. I learned that this hotel was built by the Soviets to support the 1980 Moscow Olympics, when Tallinn was chosen as the venue for the sailing competition. Remember that until 1990, Estonia was under the rule of the Soviet Union. It was a Soviet Socialist Republic. At our hotel, we were joined by a local expert tour guide, boarded our bus, and drove to some sites in the Tallinn area. First, we headed to Kadriorg Park and the grounds near the Presidential Palace. Kadriorg Palace was founded by Russian Tsar Peter I in 1718. The Roman Baroque palace is surrounded by a garden of fountains, hedges, and flower beds, modeled after Versailles. I didn't mind getting sprayed by the sprinklers on this very warm summer day. We boarded the bus again and then drove around the Estonian Song Festival grounds. It is best known as the place where the Estonian Song Festival is held every 5 years, but the region's largest outdoor concerts take place here as well. Unfortunately, we were not able to stop at the grounds and walk around due to a big event that was taking place there. But as we drove, our local tour guide explained to us the role of the Song Festival in Estonia's resistance to Soviet occupation in the late 1980s and leading up to Estonia's independence.
The Song Festival became the main symbol of protest and resistance for many Estonians, the main symbol that we still yearn for independence and our own country. However, it's even more than that, because by the late 1980s, the Song Festival grew into something we call the Singing Revolution, a peaceful protest against Soviet occupation, which led to us regaining our independence in 1991. Standing on that highway that ran from north to south, they stood there with their faces to the west and their backs to the east. I'm guessing you know what that symbolizes for us. In 1991, we got lucky. We managed to regain our independence without anyone dying in the process here in Estonia. Our southern neighbors were not as lucky as us. Their civilians did lose their lives trying to regain independence. It's difficult to explain to people why the Song Festival is so important, Why so many people watch? Why so many tens of thousands take part and audition 2 years in advance? Why it's an event that basically every Estonian will visit at least once during their lifetime. If you can imagine a symbol from your country, one symbol, which in that symbol has your language, your culture, your identity, and a fight for freedom and independence against an oppressive regime that took place just 32, 33 years ago, that's what the idea of the festival means for us.
As we drove along the coast of the Baltic Sea, our local guide talked about the struggles that Estonia has had through the ages from occupiers and aggressors, in particular during World War II.
Right now we're driving along the seaside area of Pirita, and here there's a lot of things that are going to mention the 20th century and World War II, unfortunately. Germany was here for roughly 3.5 years, the Soviet Union for nearly 50 years. Now both of them did horrible things here. There were mass executions, there was persecution of minorities, the Holocaust came through here, the Soviet Union deported more than 40, and both of them, well, a lot of people died because of both of these powers coming into Eastern Europe.
As we continued our drive up the Baltic coast, our guide pointed out some of the facilities that were built for the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow, with Tallinn being selected as the venue for the sailing events.
But coming up in front of us is the old Olympic Village. These were meant to be the biggest Olympics in the history of the world. They didn't really pan out that way. 1 year before the Olympics, the Soviet Union attacked Afghanistan, which led the US to begin a boycott of the Moscow Summer Olympics, a boycott which was joined by 64 other countries. So a lot of people didn't show up to the Moscow Summer Olympics. The housing area for the athletes is here on the left-hand side. It maintains the old Soviet facade. On the inside is completely renovated. There's a modern spa and hotel on the inside. It maintains the old Soviet facade because for whatever reason, Finnish tourists like that. And Finnish tourists are the main tourists that we have coming here. Right now though, it is not being used for roughly 2 years now. It is bankrupt. All the facilities inside are still completely modern. It's just been mothballed, just been shut down for right now. Because the pandemic hit this area quite hard. It's looking for new ownership. If any of you are interested, you might want to put in a bid. It's very nice seafront property. The Baltic Sea, as promised, is here on the right-hand side. You can see a ship coming in from Helsinki right now, and another ship exiting the port going towards Helsinki right now. But here's a question for you. The Baltic Sea here on the right, I mentioned the low salt levels, but here's a question for you. Looking at the water level right now, what do you think? Is this high tide or low tide? What do you think? High tide, low tide? I must tell you, I'm being completely unfair. This is a trick question. There is no tide in the Baltic Sea.
Our guide was giving us a lot of interesting and compelling historical information about Tallinn and Estonia. So it was good to get out of the bus for a while and take a reflective walk down to the shore of the Baltic Sea. Then it was back on the bus to head for Tallinn's medieval Old Town. We walked up the hill to visit the Estonian Parliament building and the Russian Orthodox Church across the street. Our guide informed us that the Old Town was actually comprised of two parts, the Upper Town and the Lower Town. And throughout the ages, they didn't seem to get along very well.
Upper and Lower Tallinn were two separate cities, and I mean this quite seriously. They had separate city walls. By the way, that cannon tower right there, stable tower behind these trees, those gun ports only point in one direction, towards the Upper Town. Not in the field where an enemy army might be, but towards the Upper Town. The Upper Town also used to have towers which only pointed towards the Lower Town. And in 1561, for 2 days, the two cities did fire cannonballs at each other for 2 entire days. They did not get along. We'll cover why in a couple of moments. But the Upper Town's wall has not survived. In the 1600s, during the Swedish era, it was demolished. It was obsolete by that point. The Lower Town's wall survived a bit longer. When both walls existed, the maximum length they reached was about 2.8 kilometers, 1.5 miles, maybe a little bit more than that. It had 86 towers on it. Specific internal structural elements which are rare in Estonia, then you can't really touch them. If here they might rent it out, maybe turn it into Airbnb or something like that. So not many people actually live here. Permanently less than 200 people live in the Upper Town these days. The Lower Town's population is higher, a few thousand, but again, not that high. The Lower Town is more of a tourist area. We are coming up to another church. We're not going inside this one. We're just going to walk past the front of this one, but it's an important one. This white church that we are coming up to is called St. Mary's Cathedral, and it is the location of the first ever church built in Estonia. Not the same building, but the same location. You might perhaps think that our security measures are a little bit relaxed, I suppose. I've often run, with my groups, I've run into our Prime Minister in the evenings. She bicycles home on the road, for instance. So it's the luxury of being a small country. It's about 100 lower than it is. It's not so, in fact, north and west Estonia are slowly rising from the sea. Only by about 3 millimeters now, not much.
Our guide described the social and political structure that shaped the town.
Surfboards as well, but technically they owned other people, and they didn't always treat them or live very lavish lifestyles, wore expensive clothing, had celebrations and parties, and they taxed the peasantry to get their income. Maybe this is to some extent true in, let's say, like pre-revolutionary France, late 1700s. The Lower Town used canals to divert water into the water system, the pipes, the wells, etc. But the Lower Town did not have a feudal system. The Lower Town was governed by a council of merchants elected from the population of the Lower Town. Now, I make this sound far more democratic than it really was. Yes, there were elections, but only merchants were elected. And it wasn't a general election where the public, not a popular election. In that sense, the old council members elected new council members. Only merchants were elected, who were a minority. Buildings from the 1400s look like in Tallinn.
We walked down to the Lower Town, which is where I did most of my walking around the past couple of days. It was nice to have a knowledgeable guide who would explain the significance of some of the important buildings.
Continuously working cafe in Tallinn from 1864. So if, for instance, you want to get some Estonian sweets, you can find the Kalev brand in any supermarket. But if you want like the high-end, handcrafted chocolates, marzipan figurines, truffles.
We ended up at the appropriate place, the Old Town Market Square.
Here is the town hall, a grey stone building. It's from 1404, so it looks a bit like a church to some people. I think it's the town hall. And it actually functioned as the town hall for the city council up until 1970. Then it became a museum. And on top of that, is also the symbol of Tallinn, Old Thomas, who you can't really see right now, because it's a weather vane, depending on how the wind shifts.
The tower that he's pointing out is the very same one I climbed to the top of 2 days before.
So the original Old Thomas was put up there in the year 1530. So nearly 5 centuries ago. Some very big shoes to fill because he's been up there now for under 30 years. His grandfather was up there for over 400 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, it takes a while. Something to live up to. First mentioned on the 8th of April, 1422. 70 years before Columbus crossed the ocean. 31 years before the Constantinople.
The Town Hall Pharmacy is the oldest pharmacy in Europe to continually operate on the same premises. It was first mentioned in town records in the year 1422. As our morning guided tour came to a close, I felt that I had gained a much better understanding and appreciation for the culture and the history of this special place.